Hello, reading community. I am excited to share my September wrap up with you guys. And it may be kind of a long video because I had a fantastic reading month. So if you want to hear what I've read this month, hang on. Hey everybody, welcome to Book Talks with Miss Thomas. I'm Miss Thomas. I'm so thrilled you're here. If you are returning, yay, thanks so much. I love this community. And if you are new, please subscribe. Now, I read if you count what I'm reading now, I've read over 10 books the month of September. And the only one I didn't like, I did that rant. So you can hear all about that if you're interested. But that leaves 9 really good books I can tell you about. I'm going to start with the one that I'm not finished with yet because it is an absolute sleeper. And it's only one book by this author. I looked and looked for something else written. I think the author has published some short stories, but I love this book and I'm just going to go right to it. The name of the book is The Unlikely Yarn of the Dragon Lady. And the author, this is the author, but unfortunately, I think I'm going to write her a letter and say, write more books. Unfortunately, to my knowledge, this is the only book she's written. And her name is Sharon J. Mondragon, or Mondragon, perhaps. I loved this book. Actually, I loved it so much. There's like 20 pages left, and I can't bring myself to finish it. So when I should have been finishing the book, I went out to the store. What's up with these paper bags? This is from Michael's craft store, but I went out to the store and decided I want to learn how to knit. So I have no idea how to learn how to knit. So I bought this just because it was a big thing and it was, what is it? The economy value yarn. And I thought it was a pretty color. And I read that it's good to get bamboo for knitting needles. So I got bamboo knitting needles. And I got, these are bamboo knitting tools. And then I got these because they were on clearance for $2. And I thought, well, I don't know what the correct thickness should be. So these were a different thickness than these. And then I thought, okay, if all else fails, the yarn recommends a particular crochet hook. So I bought the crochet hook because my understanding is that it's easier to crochet than knit. But anyway, I love this book so much, and there were so many wonderful descriptions of knitting that it made me want to learn how to knit. So let me tell you about this book. There is a group of they're mostly elderly women that get together in church every Wednesday and they knit together and they pray while they knit. And so they're praying and knitting, and they're making these prayer shawls that they give to people who, need extra prayer, need comfort, need support for whatever reason. And there's this one woman named Margaret, and she's like the ringleader, and she's this grouchy elderly woman. And she wants to be in control. She wants everybody to go along with her, and she's very critical. And so, in the beginning of the book, she goes into the church and she's mad about some dust in the prayer chapel, and she wants the pastor to set the cleaning person straight. And the pastor actually has this Father's Knows Best t-shirt on, and he intends to tell the knitting group that they need to go forth and knit in the mall, knit somewhere public. I think he said somewhere public and they end up in the mall. But he wants them to knit somewhere public so that they take their ministry out into the world. And of course, Margaret is furious. She wants to knit in the nice, controlled, silent prayer chapel in the church. And the other ladies are a little more agreeable to the idea. And so it's just really, I love this book. This was definitely a 5-star read. I'm almost finished. I have like 20 pages left and I'll finish it. I'm saving the last 20 pages for Chrissie at Chrissie's Purple Reading Library. She has a reading sprint tonight, so I'm saving for that. And I just really love this book. And so Margaret is the only reluctant one. The other women, they're okay with going out into the world and knitting. And so they go into this coffee shop and they start knitting there. And the manager of the coffee shop is a real pill, and she she's real difficult, and she doesn't like them there because they don't buy coffee. And then there's a couple different women in the prayer group and that knit, and they all have different things going on as the story unfolds. And you really I just fell in love with each of these ladies in this book. Even Margaret, she ends up all right in the end. But there's Fran, who's recently widowed, and there is this man at the coffee shop who hangs around, and he's real interested in Fran, and all the ladies see him looking at Fran and they think he must be a stalker, and there's something wrong with him, and he's just a lonely widower. And then there's there's Rose, who walks with a cane, and she's lives in a place for assisted living, and she's really unhappy about having to give up her independence and her home and her car. But her daughter has, insisted that she move into assisted living. So Rose is, of course, thrilled to go out in the mall and be a part of the action. And then there's Jane, who is just more of a neutral character. She's easier, I think, to deal with. And then there's these women that they meet in the mall while they're knitting in the mall, and one is I can't remember their names, but they meet these two women that end up wanting them to teach them how to knit. And because people see them knitting, they start writing prayer requests on napkins, and they drop off their prayer request and they hurry by, and the ladies start praying for all the different people in the mall. And then some of the people in the mall start engaging with them and talking with them. And some of them do start going to their church. And of course, Margaret's not happy about that, because one of them, has purple hair of all things, And the other people, of course, including Father Pete, are thrilled to have these newcomers at their church. And it's just a wonderful story. Plus, when you find out about the different women and their different struggles, I just loved it, because the book portrays that, yes, Christians are great women, they're godly women, and they're loved and they're forgiven, but they're not perfect. And I love that about the book. I love the flaws and the way that, some of them, like Margaret, they try to hide their flaws and they want to look like they, have got it all together. But as the story unfolds, you realize they've got warts and all, just like everybody else, and they're just as loved. And that love can be shared with everyone else in the mall and the outside world. So I just loved this book. I haven't finished it yet because I love Chrissie, and I know Amanda's going to be there tonight. I hope Katie will be there. And I just want to finish this book with some of my favorite Christian sisters, because these are sisters in Christ who are in the mall knitting. And I liked it so much. I think I'm going to try. I don't know. I'm left-handed. I have dyslexia, so the odds are not in my favor, but I'm going to try to learn how to knit, because I just loved it that much. It sounded so fun. And I think I'm going to get a hold of this author, and I'm going to say, write another book, because I loved it. Okay, so let's see. Another book, Christian book. I'll start with the Christian books, I think, and then I'll get into the secular books, and that way you can choose which books you want to hear about. I think they were all good except the one I did the rant. Didn't like that one, but and we're not going to dwell on that one. Another Christian book that I read this month is The Spice King. I was invited by Lovely Day with Holly to be in a Christian reading group where they discuss this book, The Spice King by Elizabeth Camden. And total transparency, I got this book from the library in June or something when I first heard about it, and I got busy with other books, and I'm just not really a romance reader, so I gave it back and I didn't read it. But then, because I like Holly and the other ladies in the book club, I thought, okay, I really want to get to know these ladies. I'm going to try and read this book again. And so I didn't start the book last time. I didn't give it any chance. I just knew it was a romance. And I mean, look at it, doesn't it kind of, to me, this book suggests some potential heaving. Not for me. But I got the book from the library again, and I read it, and I loved it. I thought it was really fantastic. If I liked romances, I might give it a 5-star, but I'm not really a romance reader, so I would definitely give it a 4-star. It's the story of Annabelle, who her family does not have a lot of money. Her sister is blind, and she gets an opportunity to work in Washington on, I think it's like agriculture or something, the Department of Agriculture. And she gets a job in Washington, and she brings her sister with her because there's opportunities for her sister in Washington being blind. And it's just a great opportunity for both of them. So they go to Washington, two girls, you know, on the town, trying to make a life for themselves. Okay, so in the 1900s, Annabelle gets a job as a botanist working for the Smithsonian. And in order to be successful in her job, she really wants to get a hold of Gray Delacroix, and he has some special plant that she wants to see and learn about. And so she sort of barges into his life, wanting to get a look at his plant, but he won't share his plant or any of his business with the Department of Agriculture because he really doesn't trust the government. So despite that, Annabelle and Gray forge a sort of relationship where Gray knows that she works for the government. He doesn't trust the government, but he trusts her. And then just they start to have this relationship together. It's like a friendship. It starts out kind of platonic, and then it turns into a potential romance. But of course, there's bumps along the way. I really liked this. I liked the character of Annabelle, and that's what I said to the book club. I liked that Annabelle, you kind of wondered, she's very ambitious, but because it's 1900 and she's a woman and it's sort of a romance, but she's not one of those, oh, little old me, I need me a man. You know, she's got this career, and she's very patriotic and interested in the things that drive her. And that's what Gray is attracted to with Annabelle. And so I like the complexity of her character. I did not like some of the choices she made in this book. I had difficulty liking her toward the end, but I did like her throughout the book. There were moments that I got pretty mad at her, and I liked her sister. I liked the character of Gray. My favorite character in this book was Gray's sister, Caroline. I hope that this author makes a sequel, and it features his sister, Caroline, who works for the president's wife, and she's really into fashion, and she's like organizes the social calendar of the president's wife. And that was just a lot of fun. I liked her character, and she was loyal to the core, and she was just a little tigress when it came to getting what she wants. So I hope there's a sequel featuring Gray's sister Caroline, but I definitely recommend this book. So Fallout by Carrie Stuart Parks. Carrie Stuart Parks' latest book, Fallout, I read and reviewed in a separate video, and Woman in Shadow I also reviewed. And I've already loaned those books out to other people, so I don't have them in my possession right now. So I put the pictures on the screen. As you know, I love Carrie Stuart Parks, and those were Clan-Fernan, I think that's how you pronounce it, mysteries where there's like a government detective or an FBI agent or someone who has post-traumatic stress syndromes, who has a post-traumatic stress disorder, and they are rehabilitating, and they get wrapped up in a new mystery to solve. And so those books I really liked. I still say Fragments of Fear is Carrie Stuart Parks' best book, but if you're looking for a good mystery, and those are about government agents, then I would recommend those two. I read them this month. 9 was an interesting science fiction book. That was a book also involving government agents. There was a girl who her memory was wiped, and she's on the run. She's not really sure why. And she encounters this waitress in a restaurant who befriends her. And then the two end up on the run from these FBI agents. And, come to find out this character 9 that's on the run, she was some sort of government project with, she was created to be like this US government weapon, this superpower woman with all these instincts and skills to fight, for the military. And she didn't know that because her memory was wiped away, and the government wants her back. And so that was an interesting action-packed kind of mystery. 9 also didn't I got that one from the library. I didn't buy that one, so I had to return it, but I show you the cover. 9. Okay, so the only other Christian book that I read this month is The Mountain Between Us. And The Mountain Between Us was an audiobook. I reviewed that in my list of books I would recommend for Christian boys. That was, if you've ever read Hatchet, that's like a 6th grade level, middle grade book. To me, it was like a Hatchet for Christian adults. It was a story of an airplane that crashes because the pilot has a heart attack while he's flying the plane. And the 2 passengers are trying to survive in the mountains. So The Mountain Between Us. One is a doctor, and so he's trying to help the woman who, I thought she was a magazine writer, and she was in a hurry to get home for her wedding. And she's injured more seriously than the doctor. So the doctor's taking care of her and trying to get them to safety. So The Mountain Between Us, if you like an action, like a survival story. I have to tell you, that one I didn't really find as engaging as, a mystery, but it did have action. I think it would appeal to some people, especially if you like a book like Hatchet or a book like maybe Call of the Wild about surviving in the mountains or in the wilderness. That was one. And I know I have a friend at my church who loved that book, The Mountain Between Us. So I will put that on the list as a recommendation. It wasn't necessarily for me, but it wasn't a bad book, and I know other people love it. So The Mountain Between Us. Those are my Christian books that I've read. I've also read some secular books. So I'm going to start with The Bookish Life of Nina Hill, which I reviewed. That was more like last week of August. I read that one, but I'm going to include it in this wrap up because I don't feel like it got enough attention, and I really do recommend that book. I got that audiobook, and it is a secular book. It did have a few things in it that were not terribly Philippians 4 lovely kind of things, but I didn't think it was anything horribly offensive to an adult, to a discerning reader, because this character, Nina, she is it was sort of like an adult version of the Inheritance Games, if you will. Nina Hill has this mother who got pregnant and, didn't want to get married. Turns out the father was married anyway. And so she's not really a character in the book. The book is about Nina, the daughter, who is the product of this extramarital really fling. It wasn't even an affair. It was, if it was more than a one-night stand, it wouldn't have been much more. So that's why I say it's not really a Philippians 4 book, but that's the background of the book. The book itself is about Nina Hill, and she just wants to work in a bookstore and read books and be left alone when she finds out that she had a father who was very wealthy and very powerful and had a huge family with all kinds of children from all kinds of different women, and he has left her in his will. And so Nina is sort of coerced into attending the reading of the will, and some of the family members embrace her and some of them are just really rotten to her, and she just wants to read her books and be left alone, and she's sort of thrown into this world of this wealthy family. And it was just a fun book. I thought it was fun. There was a little bit of profanity and references to romance that weren't very polite, but I did think it was a fun book. I would recommend it to an adult reader, especially the audio. It was funny to listen to. The Good Girl's Guide to Murder, I also listened to on audiobook. That was a young adult book. It was about a girl who wants to investigate a local murder that occurred 5 years earlier for a high school project. And I think she's a senior, and she goes to investigate this murder, and she reaches out to the brother of the boy who was accused of murdering this teenage girl. So it was supposedly a murder where a teenage girl was killed by her boyfriend, her jealous boyfriend. But come to find out, there's a lot of judgment against the boyfriend because I think he's Asian American. He was raised in the country, but there's some discrimination, or the media, sort of slants the public opinion against him because of that. And then the girl who was supposedly killed was really a cruel bully, but she was this lovely, all-American kind of girl. And so it was interesting to me how the media took the story and portrayed it as something completely different than what it really was. And then there was the aspect of the murder, did the boyfriend kill her? And, if not, who did? And so this teenage girl who's just really intellectual, and just wants to be a successful journalist, go off to college and be a journalist. She investigates this cold case, and she convinces the brother of the boy who was supposedly the killer. He committed suicide, presumably. He killed her and then committed suicide. And she convinces the brother to help her investigate this. And the brother, of course, doesn't believe that's really what happened, but finally someone else is considering that maybe that's not what really happened. So those two create a fun friendship, and she just is so unrelenting in trying to investigate this cold case. And it, of course, is a good mystery that unfolds throughout the book, too. So A Good Girl's Guide to Murder was a fun young adult book, which I would recommend. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if I saw that find its way into the public high schools as a potential read for English classes, because even though it's a mystery and, kind of a sort of a light, fun mystery, there are some pretty heavy themes, like the way we judge people and how easily prejudice can be influenced. And, it was just kind of scary to me the way that the people in the story were manipulated by the coverage of the story. So I definitely think there are some thought-provoking discussions that you could have if you read that book, A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. The Last Housewife. See, I've already forgotten the title. The Last Housewife, and didn't care for it at all. Don't want to give any spoilers in this video. If you're not opposed to spoilers, you can see my rant video about The Last Housewife. One viewer did comment that they liked the book because they could identify with the way, I guess, some of the horrible things happen, not necessarily to the extreme that the book portrayed it. But, I definitely think there is something to be said for, raising awareness about unhealthy relationships. Certainly, I think so. The Last Housewife, I think, took it way too far and got way too graphic. If you do want to read a book that raises awareness about that, one that I reviewed is All Girls. I will link that in the description box. All Girls was a fantastic book that talks about how, violence and a culture of violence against women can be destructive and how it can hurt and impact various girls. In this case, All Girls takes place at a boarding school that is for all girls, but there are, some terrible experiences that they have because of some influences in their culture and the world around them. And so I would recommend that book. I actually gave that book as a gift to a dear friend of mine's daughter who is doing a research paper for women's studies. And I said, that's a great one for that paper. I highly recommend that book. Did not highly recommend The Last Housewife at all. The last two books that I'm going to talk about are Unmissing, which was recommended, I believe, on Lindsey's little library as one of her backlisted books. And I love Lindsey. I highly recommend her channel. I will link her in the description box below. She recommended this book, and I got this book right away, and I loved this book. But I have to tell you, this book was pretty disturbing. So, if you're somebody who's sensitive to certain topics, I would be careful with this book. It didn't get nearly as graphic as The Last Housewife, and the character in this book was not in any way complicit with the things that happened to her. However, there is some violence in this book against a female character. So, but it was a really creepy mystery that I was a page turner that kept me guessing and kept me going, and I definitely was hooked from beginning to middle to end. Unmissing is the story of this really perfect seeming couple where this guy, he's a millionaire, he has this restaurant, he has this beautiful, perfect wife, and then one day his first wife appears, who was pronounced dead, disappeared, I think 9 or 11 years ago. And she comes back and shows up at their doorstep because turns out she hasn't been dead. She's been missing for 9 to 11 years. And what exactly has happened? Where has she been then for 9 to 11 years? And it does begin with her abduction. It doesn't tell you who abducted her. It doesn't give a description. It just has her hiking in the mountains in the very beginning, and she's abducted. And then it fast forwards to this lovely couple. I guess the husband of this woman has moved on and remarried, and she shows up at their door. And so there's a little bit about the wife who was declared dead, and what she has been through and how she survives and finds her way back to her husband and tries to build her life and put her life back together. And then the husband and his wife and what their life is like, and what it's like for them to have this woman show back up in their life. And and of course the new wife is pregnant, so that was kind of interesting, because you naturally had some feels for, as Amanda would say, a book lover Amanda, there were some feels, because you've got the pregnant woman and you've got the woman who was missing and harmed and mistreated. There was a lot of emotion in this one. Let's see. The girl who was missing, the wife who was missing and comes back, she finds a job working for this woman who is really into sort of new age, like crystals and books, and has different guardian angels and saints around. And so the character that's been missing gets a job working for her, and I really liked her character. She calls the woman, the unmissing woman, she calls her Angel, because her daughter died as a teenager. And so the woman who owns the shop and takes this unmissing woman in, she sort of sees it as a second chance, an opportunity to I guess, recover some of the feelings of loss that she has over the death of her daughter. And she lets this woman come in and stay with her, gives her some of her daughter's clothes, which are very much out of style because, the daughter has passed away years earlier. So I loved the character development in this book. I loved all the development. I can't say I loved all the characters because there were some evil people in this book, but the character development was rich. And so I do recommend this book. And then the last book I want to mention, which is uncanny how similar it is to Unmissing, because I didn't know much about Unmissing going into it. And I knew nothing about the audiobook that I'm listening to now. I read Mary Kubica's book, The Good Girl, when it first came out, and that was years ago. I mean, that was quite a few years ago. And I remember that book. I enjoyed that book. I didn't think it was everything everybody told me it would be, but I thought it was a good mystery book. I liked it. And so when I saw Local Woman Missing on my Libby app, I put my name on the list and I got that one. And that's what I'm listening to now, Local Woman Missing. And it's just kind of ironic because it's also the story of a girl who is being held hostage. She's been abducted and years pass. She's a hostage for years in this horrible situation. And she finally finds freedom. And I don't want to give too much away. I've just started the book, so I don't know a lot about it, but I will say, having recovered from Unmissing, because this was a good one, but it was a disturbing one. It took me a few days to get it out of my head. And then I started Local Woman Missing, and I thought very seriously about DNFing the book, because do I really want to read another book or listen to an audiobook about someone being victimized for years on end, by a captor? But fairly early into the book, the girl who is being held captive escapes. there's a lot of backflash and front forward, flash forward, backflash. That's getting on my nerves a little bit. I may stick it out because I am really curious to find out how this little girl was abducted, why she was abducted, and apparently her mother was killed. And now she's been returned to her father and her brother. And I'm just interested to find out how all this came about. So Local Woman Missing, I'll keep you posted. Stay tuned. That'll, I guess, if I do an October wrap up, maybe it'll be there. But anyway, that's what I've read this month. I've had a great reading month, and I just want to say real quick too, I have had such a great BookTube month. I've been so blessed by the different booktubers out there, specifically the Christian booktubers, Chrissie and Amanda and Sky and Lindsey, some of the viewers, you know. So I really want to say a special heartfelt thank you to all of you. It's been a wonderful month for me. I'm just very fortunate to have books and to have the reading community in my life.